So for me, I don't intentionally set out to offend people. My goal is to tell the truth. If you get offended in the process of me telling the truth, that's your business.
That is true.
And to be
That
honest
is
with you,
true.
it served me well.
Yeah.
Let me tell you,
Yeah.
because I'm so unapologetic, because everybody knows exactly what I believe in on every topic, I don't have to go through the process of you being offended by me because you thought I stood for something different.
That is true.
When I walk in the room, white women know I don't want you. You understand? When I walk in the room, sisters know you need to be natural. When I walk in the room, you understand? You know, as a black man, you better not have no bunny. You
Yeah.
understand? So to be honest, being unapologetic has saved me from arguments because people know what he believes. A big difference between Africans and the continent, as well as the Caribbean, Central South America, and I just came back from Costa Rica for Garvey Day. One of the big differences is in the States, in Canada, we have to be educated. We have to be convinced we in trouble because of all the luxuries and conveniences that we have.
Right.
In Africa, they don't have to be convinced they're in trouble. You get straight to the work.
Oh yeah.
Here, you got to spend a whole bunch of time convincing black people it's bad. They can't see it because I got a nice car, I got nice clothes, I can eat anywhere, I got a cell phone. What are you talking about? I'm in trouble. But you ain't even looking at your food security. You're not even looking at the police genocide. You're not even looking at, these diseases, the COVID and so forth. You're not looking at the wealth disparity. All you see is your immediate luxuries, and that blinds you. It's the illusion of opportunity that blinds a lot of black folks. The white man does a good job of making you think you're going to be the one to make it. Capitalism doesn't work if everybody succeeds. Capitalism has to have a large source of exploitable labor because it's only through poor people that the rich get mega rich.
That's how
One of the
capitalism
reasons
works,
China is in Africa, they want to put their industries there because they know they can pay the Africans lower than they pay the Chinese.
Globalization
Absolutely.
101.
There is no mega billionaires without poor people. Look at the richest men in the world and look at who makes their merchandise.
Yeah.
Second and third world children
children.
making less than $1 a day. So take Air Jordans. It takes about $2 to make a pair of Air Jordans. They sell them for $350.
Yes.
You see what I'm saying? So there is no poverty. When you hear the United Nations talking about, so we have a global initiative to eliminate poverty. That's pure bullcrap.
Yeah, because
Pure
capitalism
bullcrap.
exists. Once that
Capitalism will
exists,
die without the poverty.
Yeah.
It will die.
This is amazing. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, Queen.
So welcome to another episode of Far From Normal. Welcome.
Got it.
Very
Glad to
happy
get
to
it.
have you
Glad
here.
to be here.
We are here with none other than Dr. Umar Johnson.
Ifatunde.
Ifatunde. Can't forget that part. Can't forget that part, right? Well-known Pan-Africanist, psychologist, Black activist, as well as a well-known leader in the community. So again, clap it up. We're so honored to have you in the room with us today. So you know what? We're really honored to have you in the room today. And of course, I know you've had many conversations. You've done many interviews. Today, we'd like to kind of do something a little bit different and kind of get to know you a little bit more. Who is Dr. Umar, right? Let's talk about your origin. Where did this all begin? Where did this Pan-Africanism begin for you? What was that first thing? What was that first thing that kind of...
I was born in North Central Philadelphia, same neighborhood as Bill Cosby. And in the third grade, we lived in North Carolina. And that's where I decided I wanted to be a psychologist. I said, when I grow up, I want to be the person that children can talk to when they have no one else to speak with. I didn't have an older brother. I'm the oldest of 5 sons. And so not having that older brother, I saw the need for children to always have that person they could talk to. That was my desire to become a clinical psychologist. That's where that came from. Once we moved back to Philadelphia from North Carolina, the elementary school that I attended had a Black history class. It wasn't required by the district. It was just something that white principal, that Black vice principal, and that particular teacher, Mrs. Green, created for us. So Black history class in the 4th grade, Black history class in the 5th. That was my introduction to consciousness. It was also my introduction to public speaking because there was a Black History Month oratorical contest. I entered that. I won first place both years, and I never shut up since. So the consciousness and the speaking were both born at the same time. And it never left me. I didn't join the Garvey movement, which was right around the corner, 3 blocks away from the elementary school that I attended. I didn't join the Garvey movement until close to the end of my undergraduate years. And so naturally, there was like a progression from the Black history class, to Black Student Union in the university, to the UNIA ACL of Marcus Garvey. And in the Garvey movement, I was the youngest member. And so the elders would often ask me to stand up and speak at the Sunday mass meetings that have been held on Sunday at 3 o'clock, since Mr. Garvey started the organization in Jamaica. And so they would ask me to talk about what was a school psychologist, because they never heard of that. And a school psychologist is a psychologist of special education. So we're the ones who evaluate and determine if children need special ed services, right? But most people never heard of a school psychologist. Most people think of clinical, which is what my doctorate is in, right? And so just standing up to speak at the Garvey movement, because the elders made me do it, I started getting requests to come speak at the prison, come speak at the library, come speak at my Kwanzaa program, come speak at my Black History program. And I think my first out-of-town speaking engagements were for the UNIA. I remember flying to Atlanta to speak for the Atlanta division of the UNIA, and I remember driving up to New York City to speak for one of the New York divisions of the UNIA. And so the UNIA was actually the birthplace for my career as an activist and as a public speaker, and it was all by accident. So then 5 years go by. In 2010, I get invited to Chicago to be interviewed on a public access television show, similar to what we're doing today. Brother by the name of Dawah Yisrael, rest in peace, he passed away about 2 years ago. He was one of the Hebrew Israelite brothers. So he called me up. I wrote an article for a online news platform. And he said, I would like to interview you, but I can't afford to fly you up here. If you can get up here, I would interview you. And this is Chicago, you know, the second largest Black city and second largest conscious community. So I said, hell yeah, I'm coming. You know, so I bought my ticket, flew to Chicago the night of September the 17th. And I'm very big on coincidences. That was the same date that Harriet Tubman escaped from slavery to freedom. And so the interview was the next day, September 18th. That was the anniversary of Booker T. Washington's Atlanta Cotton Exposition speech. So we did the interview. I didn't think nothing of it because I've done millions of them in Pennsylvania. So this was like the first interview I've kind of done outside of my hometown. And so when the interview was over, I asked him for a copy of the DVD. I said, can I have that DVD? Because I just wanted a copy of it. And he said, I can't give you this. I said, no problem. At the last minute, he said, you know what? Take it. I can get another one tomorrow. If he never gives me that DVD, we may not be here today. Because I took copies of that Chicago interview to my first Harlem lecture, October the 30th, 2010. Anniversary of Nat Turner being discovered out of hiding after leading the most successful slave revolt in American history. And so I disseminated copies of the Chicago interview in Harlem 6 weeks later. And within 48 hours, I was a household name. Within 48 hours, this phone started ringing, and I started seeing area codes I've never seen. It was all 215-610-267. It was all Philly. Never mind that. It was all Philly. And then 2 days after Harlem, I was getting calls from Africa, Canada, Central South. I mean, it was crazy.
So what year was this?
2010.
Okay, 2010.
14 years ago. And so 2011, I probably did more interviews that year probably than any scholar in American history.
Wow.
I think I did an interview almost every other day. And because I was so excited, you know, that my message is finally getting out, I remember falling asleep on interviews. Literally, it'd be 12 o'clock, and I fall asleep. I said, yeah, you fell asleep on us. I said, like, you know, and, you know, so that's when I just kind of shot, you know, and the love was tremendous. You know, I really felt that I was in my lane. And then I had to make a decision because I started getting so many requests to speak that it took me away from my work as a school psychologist, which was very good money, by the way.
Right.
So I said, okay, you got to make a decision. You're going to cut back on the traveling or you got to cut back on your school psych work. And I said, raising the consciousness of our people, traveling to help parents save their children, traveling to organize and push the message of Pan-Africanism, that's more important than this money over here, even though I love what I do. So I cut back on the school psychology and really intensified on the speaking and things like that. And I don't regret it. You know, 14 years later, it was very necessary because I could see the changes that I've made. So then in 2014, that's when I get a phone call from a buddy of mine in Atlanta, Brother Dante. He says, hey, there's an HBCU for sale, St. Paul's College, which was founded by Father Russell. He was one of Booker T. Washington's friends. And this was a school founded for our ancestors right after slavery. They put it up for sale for $2 million, a whole campus, everything. Wow. Gym, auditorium, dorms, chapel. I went to the school. I said, oh my God, this is what I need. This is FDMG, $2 million. they said, if you can get us 500,000, we might could talk. So I'm trying to raise money. I'm going all over trying to raise money, and we didn't raise enough. So the Chinese bought it. So they now own it. We allowed a black college to be bought by the Chinese, and they're not doing nothing with it. They're just sitting.
It's still not built up or anything.
Nah.
Wow.
You know, I mean, it's already there. I don't know what their, what their plans is for it. Hopefully one day they'll put it back on the market because I still want it.
Right.
You know, the school that we have in Wilmington, Delaware that we purchased in 2019, it's a good place, but I want a residential school because I attended a residential high school. I went to the Scotland School for Veterans Children in Chambersburg, PA. This is the city where Martin Delaney, grandfather Pan-Africanism, he was raised. He's the one who came up with the quote, Africa for the Africans. Marcus Garvey took that and added for those at home and those abroad. And so he was from Chambersburg. That's also the city where Frederick Douglass met with John Brown before the 1859 raid in Harpers Ferry, Virginia. So anyhow, we started raising money for the school in 2014, and some of the hate came. You know, of course, 99% of our people love Dr. Umar, but, there's many who don't. And so they started saying, he's not going to open those schools. He's going to steal the money, this and that. They contacted the broker for St. Paul's. They tried to influence them not to sell me to school. This is all Negroes, by the way. Jealous YouTubeing struggle streamers, right? Who they're not doing nothing for the race. They're not doing nothing for the community, and they're trying to interrupt. So after we failed to purchase St. Paul's, I said, okay, we're just going to get any school, right? We got to get started. So I thought I would be in Detroit. Detroit has so many closed down public schools, but I had to learn the hard way that even though these schools are available, they don't want black people to buy them. The reason they shut them down is so they can sell them to the white folks to gentrify the community. Because I'm in Chicago, I'm in Detroit. Why can't I see these schools? They're showing me schools, but they're showing me the schools in the worst condition. They're showing me schools with no roof, schools with the water up to your waist in the basement. Why are you showing me this when there's a school over there y'all just built 2 years ago that's closed down? Let me see that. They saving it for the white folks. So ultimately, 2017 rolls around and it's time for the Great North American Eclipse. I'm sure y'all remember that big eclipse that happened August 21st, which is the day I was born, and it's the day that the Nat Turner War started. So we go to Nat Turner's land every August 21st. In fact, I just came from Nat Turner before I came to y'all because we celebrate his birthday October 2nd, which was an eclipse. Okay, and so I'm on LoopNet and I see this property in Wilmington, Delaware. I say, that school look kind of new. So on my way to drive down to Nat Turner, which is 5 hours from Philly, I stop and I look at the school. I say, this is it. So I go to Nat Turner. We celebrate the eclipse. I go to Cuba because my paternal great-grandfather was Cuban. I get initiated. I practice Ifa, Yoruba spiritual culture. Come back from that. We do a group trip to Africa. We go to Ghana, Togo, and Benin, Voodoo Kingdom. Come back from that. I finally walk into the school, get to see it. I say, this is definitely the place we want to be because it's only 40 minutes from Philly. Delaware is our backyard. It's like Oshawa to Toronto, right? But they wanted $2 million, the same price as St. Paul's. I said, here we go with another $2 million. I stayed at them. 18 months later, I called them up. I say, listen, nobody's buying that school. People breaking into it. Give me the damn school. We got $400K. And he said, okay. I said, really? He said, bring us the money. I brought him the money. The school was ours on February the 7th of 2019. Let me tell you why that's significant. Marcus Garvey's Black Star Line steamship was incorporated in Delaware, 1919. We bought the school on the centennial of the Black Star Line in the state where the Black Star Line was incorporated. Frederick Douglass was born in 1818. His bicentennial was 2018. We got the school 1 week before his 201st, which means we got the school during the bicentennial of Frederick Douglass's birth and the centennial of Marcus Garvey's Black Star Line. Wilmington, Delaware is the last slave state you have to survive before you get the free soil in Pennsylvania under slavery. Harriet Tubman spent significant time there. One of her main financial benefactors was a white man named Thomas Garrett, who was born on August the 21st. He's the one who gave Harriet Tubman the wagon she used to free her parents when they were about to be sold south for helping escaped Africans get the freedom. I'm saying all that to say that we're supposed to be there. Bob Marley and his mother used to vacation in Wilmington, Delaware. The Bob Marley home is only a few blocks from the school. So I'm saying all that to say when people ask me, how have you been able to stick with this? Because it's been 10 years since you started raising money. 5 years since you purchased the school. We've had setback after setback. People say, how do you stick to it? Because when I look at all the symbols surrounding it, it must mean I'm there. And the last symbol I'll give you is I had a divination done, a dafa, as they say in Yoruba culture, by a Babalawo who was visiting New York. This was in 2016, 2017, 2 years before we got to school. I said, where's my first school supposed to be? Because I was having so much trouble getting a school in America. I said, maybe I'm supposed to go to Africa and build the first school in Africa, right? I talked to my mom. I said, Mom, if we move to Africa, you coming with me? She said, let's do it. So I thought about just packing up, going to Africa because they were slamming the door in my face, even on schools we could afford. So in Detroit, there were schools we could afford that the Roman Catholic Church was selling, but they wouldn't sell them to Dr. Umar, right? So I said, maybe I just need to go to Africa. And when he did my divination, he said, no. He said, your first school is supposed to be near the place you were born. And FDMG is 40 minutes from my front door in Philly.
Wow.
So where we supposed to be. This is supposed to be the first school. I don't know why it took so long. I don't know why it's been so hard. You know, right now we at the end. You know, we got to finish some paint, lay a couple floors, and be ready for inspection, which is going to be a whole nother process because I don't think they ever thought we would finish. You know what I mean? So we're going to have to probably take them to court, you know, for discrimination because they're going to probably not try to let us open. You know what I mean? But I just say all that to say.
I don't mean to interrupt. I wanted to just ask you about your message, right? And your core message. Because what I notice is we all listen to your content, right? And I just want to know, how do you differentiate your core message with entertainment? Because I think a lot of the times your message, it resonates with people, but we also find the comedy in it. So how do we differentiate that?
It's a gift and a curse. And don't cut me off with no more of my answers. It's the gift and the curse. Because on the one hand, I think the message gets trivialized too much, right? To the point where it can become a joke to some people. On the other hand, without the trivializing of my message, it doesn't go as broad as it has. So I'm willing to tolerate it. In other words, you have no consciousness at all. You just a kid on social media doing your gaming, doing what you do. You get a Dr. Umar meme, some goofy thing that some white kid put together on TikTok, right? But you say, you know what? This is so interesting. I'm going to go see what this guy is about. You follow me? And then you get hooked on the Pan-Africanism. I can't tell you how many parents I've met who said, I didn't even know you was a psychologist. I just thought you were just a social media personality. Somebody sent me a meme, and so I looked you up. And lo and behold, you end up helping me save my child with autism. You end up helping me save my child from ADHD, from medication, from school exposure, from suicide. You saved me and my husband from getting a divorce. You follow me? So I recognize that sometimes in order to catch the mice, you got to put a little bit of honey on the trap. And so the comedy is the honey on the trap.
Okay, I had a question because that's obviously interesting because us here, we create content. And obviously, when we think about creating content, we have families, we have people we know certain things we say could offend. We already know we have to be careful sometimes and all that. So for you and your point of view, especially you're a public speaker from a long time ago, as you said. You have a lot of experience with talking in public, saying your points and everything like that. But like I know for us, like you said, we're weary about certain things we say. When did you get to the point where you said, you know what, I'm just going to speak candidly and what I think or what I believe, and not really worry about the backlash that comes with that? When did that come? Because you're older gentleman, like in the sense of social media. I would say, like in terms of creating content, a lot of people maybe your age group wouldn't do the same type of content. You might get younger people trying to catch maybe a viral wave that understand that a little bit more. But for your case, it seems like that's who you are. It doesn't seem like you're necessarily putting on a act or anything. I know it comes with it's comedic relief and all that type of stuff because, again, like you said, you put out the bait for the mouse, to get there. And we followed it. Like, we did 100%. Check into more of what you had to say beyond the entertainment part. We're like, you know what? He's saying some good points. He has his entertainment in it. But at the end of the day, it's drawing me to his content. So for you, when did you get to the point where you're like, you know what? I'm not really going to worry about criticism or backlash. I'm saying what I believe. I'm getting my support, and that's what's most important.
Okay, so to backtrack a little bit, one of the blessings that has come my way is in being so politically naive when I started speaking that I didn't know what I had to say was offensive in the first place.
Okay.
So when I said white teachers have no business teaching black children, that was just the truth. It was not said for shock value.
Okay.
When
That's
I said
what I did
ADHD
believe.
is ain't no daddy at home disorder, because that's exactly what the hell it is. You understand me?
Yeah.
When I said all white people are racist, I didn't say that for shock value. All white people are racist. You understand? So I was so naive, because remember now, I'm coming out of the Garvey movement where everything is African people first. That's my context. You understand?
Yeah.
So I'm around people who think exactly like me. You see that?
Yeah.
So there's no early pushback like you should watch what you say, because I'm RBG. It's red, black, green. You understand? So when I went out into the world, I'm taking that with me. You understand? So I'm not even realizing you're being offended by what I'm saying. I'm not even realizing you're being offended by me saying black women have no business having babies from white men, because you shouldn't. You understand? And coming from a message of an Honorable Marcus Garvey, who said some of the same things I'm saying now more than 100 years ago. Why is this offensive today? So I was politically naive, which was a blessing in disguise. Because had I not been politically naive, I might have been more careful, and my message may have not hit the way I needed to hit. So for me, I don't intentionally set out to offend people. My goal is to tell the truth. If you get offended in the process of me telling the truth, that's your business.
That is true.
And to be honest with you, it served me well. Let me tell you, because I'm so unapologetic, because everybody knows exactly what I believe in on every topic, I don't have to go through the process of you being offended by me because you thought I stood for something different.
That is true.
When I walk in the room, white women know I don't want you. You understand? When I walk in the room, sisters know you need to be natural. When I walk in the room, you understand? You know, as a black man, you better not have no bunny. You understand? So to be honest, being unapologetic has saved me from arguments, because people know what he believes. As opposed to someone who's too afraid to say what they believe. You have to go through a whole bunch of social navigating, because nobody really knows what you stand for.
That is true.
So you got to explain to every person who you are and what you believe in. I don't have to do that. When I'm around white folks, they know what it is. When I'm around black folks, they know what it is. Don't even bring it up. Can white people come in? For what? You know, what do you need them for? What is the good that they're bringing to the table? So, and I'm going to be honest with you, I think the ancestors did that. I think they set it up in such a way that we're not going to let his message and his ministry get polluted by being too concerned about what everybody else think. You understand? I'm going to always be the straight shooter. And in being the straight shooter, to be honest with you, I think it's earned the respect of a lot of white folks. Because even though they're all racist and they're never going to change, I think a lot of them can respect the black man who stands on his square more than some of these accommodationists who will bend over and twist and do a somersault to appease white folks. You understand? So they may not like me, but they respect the fact that you got the audacity to tell me to my face, you don't want me dating your women. You see what I'm saying? I don't like it, but I can respect it, because I want to tell you the same thing. You see what I'm saying? So there's pros and cons to everything, but would I do it differently? Absolutely not. Black queens forever, snow bunnies now.
See that? See how you said that, right? The whole thing with black queens. I wanted to actually ask you about that, because black queens and kings, I feel like it's devalued when it's used on everybody. Where it's like, for example, when somebody greets somebody in the States, because I noticed that's a thing that people in the States usually do. Hey, king. Hey, queen. Black queen.
Mostly in the conscious community. It's not everybody.
Unconscious.
Conscious. Conscious communities. But there's only one king. There's only one queen. So when everybody's being referred to as a queen or king, doesn't it devalue just that message?
There's not only one king or one queen. You had multiple monarchs ruling simultaneously on the continent.
Okay, you're right about that. But in terms of who they're saying, who's a queen, who's a king.
The reason I don't think it's devalued, because I don't think we use it enough. Most black women are referred to as bitches and hoes. You understand? They're not treated as royalty. And so I know that I'm probably the biggest reason why black men now call black women queens. And black women call black men king. It predates me, but the saturation of it is largely me. Because when I first started calling black women queens, the brothers would say, why are you calling her a queen? And the sisters would say, why are you calling me a queen? You understand? So I had to make them accept the respect, because they were so used to being held down here. You understand? So, you know, I take pride in it, and I don't think it's taken for granted, because I can tell how sisters feel when they are addressed in that way. because you have to put it in a historical context. Our women been raped, abused, put down, called unattractive. Even today, they're the least desirable. You understand? So when you call them a queen, you're lifting them up. So I don't think it loses its power, at all, because what I'm doing is I'm projecting onto her natural God-given divinity that I need her to one day manifest. So this is an expectation when I say queen. So I don't have a problem with it being used. I love it.
So a person that's obese, and if we're calling them beautiful, right? You're a beautiful woman or whatnot.
So you can't be beautiful if you're obese?
I mean, you could still be beautiful, but like in terms of beauty standards,
Whose beauty standards?
Well, the society that you're in.
Whose society?
Well, right
White
now, currently,
people.
Western.
You're talking about white standards.
Yeah.
And why the hell do I care about what a white man considers beautiful?
Because you grew up in this society.
What that got to do with me?
So you're programmed the same way we were programmed.
Nah, not me. I deprogram myself. I don't want no Caucasian or her beauty standards. Give me a queen. Give it to me chocolate.
Black
Give it to me caramel. Give it to me butter almond. Give it to me butterscotch. Give me fudge. I want a queen. I don't want no pale princess. I'm straight.
But
I don't use white men.
obesity doesn't need to necessarily be with European women. That could be in the black community as well.
You can, but I don't. That because you are obese does not make you unattractive. And you also have to make sure that we're not assuming that the obesity is strictly due to lack of dietary discipline, because you can be obese for genetic factors. You could be obese for medical factors. You could be obese for psychological factors. There's a lot of reasons why people are obese that has nothing to do with food. In fact, one of the biggest reasons that we do overeat, and black women in particular, is because when you are eating and drinking, the process in the brain that allows you to experience depression and anxiety, it is arrested while you are eating. In other words, we are calmer when we eat. This is why when somebody wants to get you to close out a deal, they'll invite you to lunch. Let's go to dinner and talk about that. Because if I get you comfortable, you're more likely to sign on as opposed 100%. If you're not. So people eat to stop thinking about their problems. The biggest reason we have obese black women isn't because they're in love with food. It's because they're in love with the peace that food brings them. I love my obese sisters as much as I love my 5'5" thick in the thigh curvy sisters.
Okay. But when it comes to like say respect, when it comes to, we don't respect everyone the same, right? So I wouldn't say when we talk about say queens, say we're talking about queens or kings, for example, right? And then we're talking about now a degenerate side of the society or degenerate people, for example. I'm not assuming people are gonna have that type of respect to be like, oh yeah, the queen's there and the king's there. They're all like, you get what I mean? It's not, when you say those type of words, it is a sign of respect. And I know what you're saying when it comes to like the black women and what they've been through. It's a sign of respect you're giving to people. But is respect something that has to be earned, or is that something that's a given?
I think as African people, we have always believed in a basic level of respect for anyone. No matter what their situation is, because at the end of the day, they still have the same ashe of God in them that we all have. So even if you're not living to the standard that we expect of you, you would not be alive if God didn't still believe in you. Nobody's here by accident. And everybody has to bear their own cross and go through their own situations. So even if a sister is selling her body, even if a brother is strung out on alcohol, he still has the opportunity to redeem himself. So I'm still going to honor him and respect him the same way I wish he would do for me if I was in the same situation. So I don't change it. Can I criticize him? Yes, I can. Can I pull the sister to the side and say, why are you walking around with this blonde weave on? It don't look right. Okay? Yes, I can do that. But at the same time, I'm going to respect you regardless, because you are an African and you are a human being. Your conduct is not going to reduce the level of respect I have for you as a human being. You understand that?
Yes.
Now, I may have to criticize your behavior. I may have to hold you accountable. I may have to exclude you from this particular movement because of your conduct. But I'm still going to respect you, because the God that is in me is the same God that is in you.
Okay, so don't you feel that for every other ethnicity as well? Because you're saying that specifically for the African race.
So you're asking me why I don't call a white woman queen?
No, yeah. Well, I mean, you just said you have to. You just said we have to respect all human beings.
Right, but
that's the thing.
Right, but when I call a sister queen, this is an in-group title of respect I'm giving to my women. It ain't got nothing to do with the Arabs, the Chinese, the Latinos, the East Indians, the Jews, or the Caucasoids. This is for black women only. I will respect white women, sure. I respect all humanity because I'm an African. So if a white woman is coming and I need to hold the door, I'm going to hold the door.
Okay.
If a white kid needs my help to get out of special ed or help his mom stop him from being expelled from school, I'm going to help him, and I do.
Okay.
You understand? But my priority and my obligation is my own people. No other group counts more than my own. And we don't count more than them. The problem with African people, because we've been so brainwashed by religion, we think we have to love other people as much as we love our own folks, and we never get any specialized attention because of that. That's when you hear Negroes say, I don't just love black people, I love everybody. That's just their way of saying you're not special to me because you're black, and that's a problem. Because a Jew is always more special to a Jew than a non-Jew. An Italian is always more special than an Italian than a non-Italian. Only with black people do we not give ourselves a special level of honor in comparison to other groups.
So I wanted to talk about self-hate in the community because I talk with a lot of black women, black men, and they talk about self-hate. Actually, I do hear this specifically from black women. They'll say this to a lot of black men, especially when they start dating outside of their race and these type of thing. And they like to compare it to them having some self-loathing, some kind of hate towards their own race. That's why they're going.
Who is saying who has
this.
the self-hate towards
the
the
black men? More
Sisters are saying it's about-
sisters are saying that black men experience higher levels of self-hate, and that's why they decide to go towards maybe other races because they don't really love themselves. What's your thoughts on that?
I think the self-hate is mutual. I think black men and black women, without question, share it. I think the reason why you see more bunny hopping amongst black men is because we tolerate it more.
Yeah.
It's not as acceptable for a black woman to date outside of the race. Without question, a black man who dates a non-black woman, especially if she's Caucasian, has an inferiority complex. Without question. I don't care who it is. Charles Barkley, Joel Embiid. If you're a bunny hopper, you have a racial inferiority complex. Because if the white woman is better than the black woman, the white man is better than your ass too. You can't get around it. And what they try to do is they try to heal their racial inferiority complex in that white vagina. So when the black man penetrates the white woman, it's not just an act of sex. When he penetrates the white woman in his mind, I'm finally being accepted by my oppressor who I always wanted to want me. You see that? It's a psychological way of trying to force yourself into the group that has always rejected you. Because the black man was never allowed to have the white woman for so long, she's now his most prized possession. He believes that she is the ticket to his equality with the Caucasian.
So why do they still hold on to their culture? Like I've seen black men that are with white women, but they'll still hold on to their cultural belief system.
I know some of our greatest men who had white women. Sheikh Anta Diop of Senegal, probably the greatest African cultural anthropologist, not just African, greatest anthropologist in history, one of the greatest historians of all time. I mean, this is the black man who took flesh off the mummies in Kemet and proved that they had to be African based on the percentage of melanin in their skin. When you look at Sheikh Anta Diop's library, the books that he wrote for us, showing us who we are and where we come from, are almost unparalleled by any other scholar. He was a supreme intellect and still a bunny hopper. So do you know what that tells me?
Right.
Despite all that knowledge you had, you still had an inferiority complex in you. Dr. Ivan Van Sertima, who worked with Dr. Sheikh Anta Diop, Sheikh Anta Diop, Ivan Van Sertima, and Dr. Yusuf bin Yaqin, in my opinion, are probably the three greatest African historians and anthropologists we've ever had. And of course, you have others, right? Yeah. But Ivan Van Sertima had a white wife at one time. You see, so just because you know who you are, that's intellectual. Hating yourself, that's psychological. And I think too often we confuse the fact that you got knowledge of self with an assumption that you no longer hate yourself. And nothing could be further from the truth. Because if that logic is correct, every PhD in African studies, every PhD in the world in African studies would have a black wife. And we know that's not true. So simply knowing who you are does not mean you've overcome your self-hatred. You have to internalize that information. You got to internalize that cultural truth. Simply having it in your brain means nothing. Have you become it? You see, when I go to talk to our children, I need them to become it. I'm going to talk in such a way that I'm going to rip the coon out your chest. You're going to be an African before I leave. This is not a cerebral exercise. You understand? This is psychosurgery.
Yes,
when I'm talking to black youth, I'm conducting psychosurgery. I'm going to snatch the coon out. You ain't going to never go back to being who you used to be.
So it's not a preference. So a person can't have a preference in terms of what ethnicity he wants to dabble in.
In the days of the right, excellent, honorable Marcus Messiah Garvey, you cannot join the UNIA if you was a bunny hopper. And that was 100 years ago. You could not join Garvey if you dated outside your race.
So how about the mixed brothers that were all...
Well, they
there's lots of
African. If they identify with the race on a full-time basis, I accept them. Mixed race Africans were no different than the rest of us on the plantation. You understand? Just because your mother got raped by the slave master didn't stop you from being sold. It didn't stop you from being whipped. And it didn't stop you from being a piece of property and not a person. So if a mixed race African says, listen, brother, my mom is white or my dad is white, but my other parent is black, I know I'm black, and I identify as black, let's keep pushing.
But if they don't look black, like there's a lot of people that are very light, very fair complexion, and
it's not about the amount of melanin in your skin.
but
it's the red. The first color on the flag is red. The blood makes you African.
But the problem is that other Africans may not accept you, especially with being lighter skinned, because you can
that's
walk
their
into a
issue,
room.
but that ain't my issue.
Of course, it's not your issue, but the point is that the African community is gonna be like, well,
not everybody,
but I've heard of this a lot with a lot of communities where they're like, you're mixed, like you're not African.
No, there
like,
are blacks who will reject mixed race
100%.
Africans. That's true.
100%.
You know, just like you got black folks who don't like light skin, and you got light skin who don't like dark skin. So it's just an issue of light skin and dark skin
Colorism
supremacy.
Absolutely. Yes, absolutely.
But for me and for what I stand for, and for all the Pan-Africanists who come before me, we do not separate out mixed race Africans if they identify on a full-time basis. For example, Sister Amber Rose, and y'all know who Amber Rose is. Yeah. She and I was having a conversation, and I said I needed some clarity on how do you identify. Do you consider yourself black first, right? Because her parents is what's the island off the coast of off near Senegal?
Cape Verde.
Cape Verde. So she's Cape Verdean, right? And they tend to be more light. So I needed to know. And she says she's identified as a mixed race person. She don't identify as black. So you're setting yourself apart from us. And not to say that this is her mindset, but generally, when you're dealing with black people who would prefer to be called mixed race instead of black, they believe they're a little better than you. You can't be white because white people are never going to accept you as white. But you still want the privileges that might come to you from having a little bit of white blood, even though you'll never be. What's the purpose of being mixed race if you can't be white? Because I don't want to be considered black. And so when someone says I'm mixed race, then you're letting me know I don't identify with you, and therefore I don't identify with you. You understand? But if you full-time African as a mixed race brother or sister, I will accept you with no issues. I ain't got no light skin problems. If I show you my father's side of the family, I'll show you a picture of my grandma. You might think she a white woman. We got green-eyed bandits. You understand? We got hazel-eyed bandits. We got pale-skinned black. And these are black folks with no white parents. No white parents. But that slave master blood was so strong that you popped out super light. You understand me? So,
100%.
One of the things I'm so thankful for, because I meet Africans who are traumatized by the skin color worship in their families. I know dark-skinned people who were so abused by light-skinned people, they can't stand to be around one. I know light-skinned people who've been picked on so much by dark-skinned Africans, they can't stand to be around them. Y'all know what I'm talking about. Like, they walk in a room and it's just tension. And y'all ain't even meet. It don't matter. He dark or she light. You understand me? So one of the things I'm so thankful for in my life, because even though I'm a darker-skinned brother, and even though I did see light-skin supremacy in my family on both sides, it never affected me. And I'm so thankful for that, because I would be a hypocrite as a Pan-Africanist to say I want unity for all African people when I'm still holding some type of discriminatory attitude towards the lights or the darks. And I think one of the reasons why I am so popular amongst the Pan-Africanists even is because I embrace all. When people come around me, they can feel I'm genuine. You understand? When there's nothing like a mixed race African coming up to me at the end of the lecture and say, thank you, Doc, for letting me know that I'm African, because I always felt I was, but nobody never validated me until I met you. You understand? So again, I'm all about psychosurgery.
Now, would you say that the self-hate, since we're on the subject of self-hate, do you think that this is the largest contributor to the divide between black men and women?
I think it's the largest contributing factor to the divide against African people, period. So if you're talking about the conflicts you have in Toronto, right? Yesterday, folks were talking about the issues between the Jamaican population, the Nigerian population, and others. I get the same thing in the Caribbean islands, right? They'll say the Jamaicans is the bullies, and St. Lucia, they the more laid back, calm, right? In London, where I'll be and just came from a few weeks ago, same thing. In America, here's the thing. How are black male-female relationships going to work when no other relationship works? Black churches don't get along. Black men don't get along. Black organizations don't get along. You understand? So we'll pull out the male-female relationship piece and treat it like it's different, but it's just a symptom of the self-hate that the entire community experiences. You understand? You got to heal from the top down, right? We want to fix the family, but we don't want to fix the community. Well, the community is nothing more than a collection of the families. So we need a bottom-up and a top-down solutions approach.
So then where do we start in terms of healing relationships between black men and women? Where do we begin?
You got to have the conversation, right? Mm-hmm. All therapy, all counseling begins with the conversation. We don't have enough dialogue as African people. And there's two reasons why we don't have enough dialogue. Number one, we don't own enough spaces where you can bring black people together long enough to have a deep conversation. Think about it. How many places in Toronto that we own, completely owned by blacks, not multicultural, not government, we own it, right? Like Frederick Douglass, Marcus Garvey, we own it, right? How many black spaces in Toronto do we own that can seat at least 500 black folks so we can come together once a week and figure our stuff out? Not many. Most of what we own are the churches. And most churches, what? They don't want no political conversation or agitation. Exactly. You see what I'm saying? So one of the biggest barriers to organizing black folks, where do you do it? Because you can't do it outside under the tent because everybody else going to come and listen in on what you do.
Yes, exactly.
You see what I'm saying? So that's a barrier. And then the other barrier that has been imposed on us by European capitalism is the rat race of making ends meet. You got to work 3 jobs. You got to work 3 jobs. You got to work 3 jobs and raise the kids. So you never get enough time to dedicate to helping the collective improve because we're so bogged down with all the bureaucratic obligations of the white superstructure. You see that? So keeping us busy with things that essentially don't really matter, but you got to do it to make sure you eat and can pay bills, and then no place to meet at the other time. Look at the other races. They got places to meet, and they have their own self-governing economic structures, right? So they can employ their own, they can empower their own, they can extend wealth to their own. We don't have that. And so when you say, where do we begin? Education and economics. Education and economics. You got to train the children in the art of being a Pan-Africanist, and at the same time, you got to be able to empower your people with money. You can make every black person in Toronto loyal to black people. You can get all the brothers to give up their white girlfriends overnight simply by being able to do what? Empower them economically. If a young brother come to you, he got a white wife, and he says, yo, I want to open up this store. I ain't got no money. And if you say, guess what I'm going to do? I'm going to do your down payment. I'm going to do your first 6 months rent. But guess what? You got to leave Sally Mae today. Sally Mae's gone. That pale penguin is out. You see, when money talks, the bullshit walks. The problem with us as African people is we want our people to be loyal without having no opportunity. Be loyal to being black when the black community does nothing for me. See, Jewish kids, it's easy for a Jewish kid to be loyal to being Jew because he can get everything from the community. It's easy for the Chinese kids to be loyal. They can get it from their own community. What can a black child get from us? Nothing. Until we are able to empower them economically, it's going to be difficult for them to dig in and be with us. You got to give them a reason to be proud to be black. History is great. But guess what's greater than history for our young people? Opportunity. When I go speak in the prisons, the prisons are filled with black men and women who have knowledge of self. They've read more books than we read. You understand? They don't need a Dr. Umar lecture because that's all they've been studying for the past 12 years in jail. So if you are this intelligent, how in the hell did you get into jail? Because despite knowing about the pyramids, despite reading all the Dr. Clark's books, despite watching all the DVDs, I couldn't find a job. And so I had to ski mask up and rob somebody in order to feed my kids. What good is knowledge of self if it don't come with an opportunity to do better?
100%. It's funny that you say that because I was watching this TikTok video and this guy was talking about how the U.S., this is what he said, that the U.S. actually has a third world education because you could just base it off the citizens that are there. The only reason why the U.S. stands above a lot of countries is there's a thing called the brain drain, where there's taking talents from overseas and giving them a visa to come over to the U.S. and make the U.S. look good. But if you look at the actual general population, if you look at the locals that are there and their educational level, it doesn't really match up compared to the people that are coming from overseas with their PhDs and helping the society. That's why the Silicon Valleys are built, the Googles, all these apps and stuff that are coming out of the States is usually from people that are foreign born, not people that are actually born in the US. And then after they claim them as US citizens, to make it seem as if they were actually brought up from the grassroots of the US. So because of their the economy and how much they're getting paid, that's why a lot of talents are being stolen from other countries around the world.
You are absolutely correct. But to that point, isn't that what America has always done? Isn't that what all European colonial powers have always done? They've always imported the talents.
Yeah,
they've imported the skills. After the Jewish Holocaust in Germany, America had a secret operation where they brought all those top Nazi scientists to America to work for the U.S. government.
Yeah,
These Nazis were never persecuted.
Never.
Right? They were never charged. Okay? And they lived their lives out for America. When you talk of that brain drain, you know, I would say the intellectual African Holocaust is a big issue because to your point, what America does is they'll go to Africa and they scour for talent.
Yes, of
course. They scour for talent, and they bring them to America,
back,
give them a white wife, a white husband, and they spend the rest of their life supporting white power.
Yes.
And that's another reason why we have to raise our children differently, because black children have to be so committed to African liberation and African redemption that they cannot be bought with a scholarship. They cannot be bought with a good job. But the problem with that is we have to recognize that a hungry man is first and foremost loyal to his stomach. If I'm hungry, whoever feeds me is going to get my loyalty. You understand that? Yes. And that's why we have to provide for our children, because until you provide for your children, every black child is a potential sellout. Everyone.
Yeah, of course.
I'm hungry. My mama hungry. The black community isn't doing nothing for me. If the Jews come, if the Germans come, if the Americans come, if the French come, if the Belgians come, if the Portuguese come, I'm out. Look at our athletes. It's the same thing.
Yeah, same thing.
I look at Joel Embiid. You're playing for Team America. Why are you not playing for Cameroon? And if you don't want to play for Cameroon, go play for the brothers in South Sudan who had a good chance to win. And in my opinion, they got robbed. They got robbed. They got robbed in the exhibition against the Americans, and they got robbed. I think they played Slovenia when they lost. They wasn't getting no foul calls. Because the Olympics is completely racist, and there's a political agenda to the Olympics. And I don't understand. Here we go again, loving white people. With all the African nations in the world, why do we need to participate in the white man's Olympics in the first place? There's more of us than anybody else in the world. White people are the numerical minority on earth. Why are we going to them to compete? There's no athlete like an African. So why French be winning the football and they be winning this? You know why? Because they bring, here we go,
all the talent.
All the talent is black. Look at the American Olympics. You would think America was a black country.
Of course.
Look at it. All the track stars. You're looking for, you see, and we okay with that. Why are Africans okay letting our best minds and athletes go and slave for the oppressor?
I think they're indifferent to it. I don't even think they're okay with it. I think they...
No, but my point is it's not about the athlete.
Okay.
We allow them to do that.
Yes.
In other words, black children are socialized to have no concern for what benefits or what is a detriment to the group. You understand? They don't even think about, is this best for Africa? They don't care.
But it's like the food theory you just said. It's like loyal to the food, right?
Absolutely. You got to be loyal to the race. But we don't teach racial loyalty.
Unfortunately, because if you think like a guy in Africa, say for example, is a good soccer player, and then you got a European club, obviously going to pay him hundreds of millions of pounds. He's not going to even think about what's happening in Africa. He's like, well, I want to play there. And then when it comes to the national team, I'm definitely playing for their national team to get more looks for my own personal family to benefit from my wealth. So it's a lot of individualism when it comes to the black community, where if I become successful, I'm happy with that and my family, but my group and the people around me that are the same race as me have the same struggles or could have had the same struggles. I don't really care for them, because as long as my family's okay and I'm okay, who cares about you and you?
You're correct. And what I'm saying though is that is a systemic illness in African culture that needs to be healed. In other words, some people will focus on the Joel Embiid. They'll focus on the Oprah Winfrey as a billionaire. Richest woman in the history of North America. Right? Does nothing for her race of significance, right? And so people say Oprah no good and Tyler no good and Tiger Woods is a billionaire and Serena and Rihanna and all these billionaires and then Jay-Z and beyond.
Don't say
But guess
Diddy.
what? But guess what? Diddy too. But guess what? Here's the thing. Don't focus on them. Focus on the system in the black community that creates this type of thinking. Because you can get rid of all them today and they will be replaced.
Same thing.
You're going to keep producing the same type of Negro until you change your system. The problem with us, we don't have no systems. What is the system to take a black girl and turn her into a woman? Rites of passage. Where is it? What is the system that takes a brother who coming out of prison to make sure he don't go back? What is the system to train our children to be loyal? What is the system to keep our elders from being murdered in these hospitals? We have no infrastructure. We have no institutions. We have no systems. That ain't the biggest problem. You know what the biggest problem is? We're comfortable with that. We are comfortable in our oppression. The biggest difference between the modern African and the traditional African, they were never comfortable in their oppression.
Yes.
They were never comfortable in their oppression. What did Brother Malcolm say with the field Negro and the house Negro? When that field Negro said, we running away, the house Negro said, wait a minute, you sure we gonna make it? Right? He said, I don't care if we make it. Anything better than this is worth a shot.
Exactly.
But what about the food we get, these chillers and these leftovers that we get? You see what I'm saying? But the field Negro don't care. I want out.
Yes.
And the problem with us, we really don't want out.
Yes.
Most Africans, even the conscious ones, are not interested in black liberation. You know why? Because black liberation means we're ultimately accountable for our own solutions. Black liberation means Toronto don't eat unless black people feed themselves. Are we really ready for that level of responsibility? You hear black men say all the time, well, the welfare state is what led to black women no longer respecting black men, because if they can get a house from the government, and if they can get food stamps from the government, and they could get all this from the government, why should they respect us? Okay, black man. So if the white man came to you today and said, guess what, I'm ending all welfare programs. No more black women gonna qualify for nothing the white man giving them. Are y'all ready to step up and be the men your women need? Are you ready to be responsible full-time, 24 hours a day, 365 days a year for the health and safety of black women and children? And guess what? Most of us are not. We've gotten comfortable with the white man subsidizing our women. We've gotten comfortable with the white man subsidizing our children. So when you talk about independence, which is the true measure of freedom, are we really ready for that? Are we really ready to be put in a situation where we have to build or we will die? We're not ready. What black people really want is a more comfortable oppression. We don't mind white people being in charge. We don't mind the police knocking off a few of us every year if that's the tax we got to pay to be amongst white folk. We just want a little more comfort, but we don't want to change the system that we are under. And I believe that's one of the reasons why Almighty God, Supreme Consciousness, isn't benefiting us the way that we want God to intervene in our affairs, because the Lord is looking at this and said, these Negroes who want freedom, think, act, and feel just like the crackers they trying to get free from. So you mean to tell me if I liberate y'all from the white man, all you're going to do is replace the white man? And that's exactly what happened in Africa after the independence explosion. We fought and died to get the Portuguese out, get the French out, get the British out, get the Belgium out. And lo and behold, what happened? We became just like them over each other. Look at Lumumba's assassination. Negroes helped get him. Amilcar Cabral, Negroes helped get him. Thomas Sankara, his best friend got him. Look at that. Look at that. Chris Haney's assassination in South Africa. You ain't gonna tell me the ANC wasn't involved in that. You see that? We pushed out the white man so we could be a white man.
And I think one of the biggest issues that we have to kind of address is the trust, the mistrust within the black community. I think for years we've been kind of speaking against the things that are happening, trying to move the dial forward. But I think the mistrust is a huge catalyst into why we're not able to move forward. What are your thoughts around that?
You're correct. And you know what's the sad part, Queen? Black people have a lot of examples as to why you can't trust other black people. You understand? That's the sad thing. These assassinations I'm talking about. I deal with it, right? To give you an example of your point of mistrust. Two things I wish I had before September 18th, 2010, when I blew up. I wish I already had a wife, and I wish I had a team that I could trust beyond any measure. Do you understand? The toughest part of being Dr. Umar is you attract all kind of people who want to work with you, but for the wrong reasons. You understand me? I can't tell you how many people I brought on my team who the minute they got enough fame, enough stardom, enough clicks, enough views, they disappeared. They didn't come to help me help the people. They came to help themselves to my presence. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Sure.
Our people are so opportunistic. We have become the Caucasian. We don't want to admit it. We have become the Caucasian, which is why I say again, until there's a psychological revolution, there will be no other kind. And here's the thing. As Frederick Douglass so eloquently said, it's better to raise strong men than it's better to raise strong children than to repair broken men.
You're right about that, 100%.
It's better to raise strong children. Basically, Frederick Douglass, now this man was a slave, enslaved. He said, once you get us, it's hard to make us back into what we need to be.
Yeah.
Psychologically speaking, he's correct. Most people who suffer mental illness will suffer it the rest of their life because they don't have the desire or the discipline to overcome it. You understand? That's why I'm saying we got to get to them babies. If we just raise the children right now, in 20 years, you have a new black mind. But we don't care about that. You know why? Because Toronto public schools, as horrible as they are, the white man is in charge. And because the white man is teaching my child, he's going to do a better job than I ever could. That's how we believe. Right. We do not assume responsibilities wherever the white man has always provided us with a service, no matter how bad it is. Do you follow what I'm saying? Yeah. No matter how bad the food is he feeding us, if the white man is feeding it, it must be good. 100%. We are still under a plantation psychosis.
There you go.
And Dr. Umar, I know you're going to kill me for cutting you off once again, but we're about to wrap it up. Man, you told us so many things, so many great things. We learned so much. I feel like we've gained so much knowledge and so much wisdom in terms of why it's so important to, be united.
Yes.
As a whole, as a people, and not really get into interracial relationships and stuff of that sort. And I definitely appreciate you for coming out. You guys have any final last
even
words?
just honestly on just the perception of you online. Obviously, you here in person, big difference. 100%. Obviously, well spoken as usual. Yes. Great conversation. Appreciate your time and energy that you brought here. And yeah, man, keep doing your thing. I think what you're doing is great for the people that don't have this information. Yes. What you told us today, like we don't even have that information, and we like to think we're a little more conscious than your average black folk. Like we at least know some of the historical aspects. We read into the books and stuff like that. We're not the most well versed, but we can understand how much dedication you put into your work. So we appreciate that.
Appreciate
For sure. And honestly, learned so much. Definitely was inspired by hearing the original story of how you kind of got into Pan-Africanism, because seems I can definitely resonate with that. I had a teacher in the school who kind of really immersed us in that kind of teaching. So I'm just really honored to have you here. I just want to ask you one last thing.
Sure.
What is one thing that you want to tell the black community of Toronto? You're here now. We have you in this space. So what is one thing that you'd like to share? What is the most important thing you'd like to share?
The most important thing I would like to share in a 3-part quickly. 1, there's an African proverb that says, as long as children are still being born, God hasn't given up on African people yet. When God has completely given up on us, no more black babies will come into this world. That's when you know he's done. As long as women are still getting pregnant and still birthing, that's the opportunity for us to birth a new reality. That's 1. Number 2, there's no such thing as a perfect revolution. One of the side effects of the black consciousness explosion is we have gotten so filled with information that we are afraid to apply it, because if we fail, it will be an insult to our ego. So everybody has the ideas. Everybody has the solutions in their head. Nobody wants to take a chance, because if I'm proven wrong, I will no longer look as intelligent as I am. All revolutions have contradictions. There's no such thing as a perfect revolution. You got too many black people say, I'm only going to get involved if you can guarantee me this is going to work. Well, guess what? The American Revolution had failures. The French Revolution had failures. Mistakes were made in the Cuban Revolution. Mistakes were made in the Haitian Revolution. The African revolutions. There's going to be mistakes. You work through them. Stop waiting for a perfect blueprint before we get off our asses and do something. Yeah. And the last piece, sacrifice. There is no transformation for African people anywhere in the world, from Toronto to Texas, from Alabama to Angola. Nothing changes without sacrifice. You're going to have to sacrifice money. You're going to have to sacrifice time. Some of us are going to have to sacrifice our lives. If we want to be free, there's a price to be paid, because nothing is more expensive than your freedom.
There you go.
No.
Black power.
There you have it, guys. Great interview.
Wow.
You date white